imagine, whether you are pro-life as I am or pro-choice like others, that this would be even an issue of debate or discussion within the two sides. There is no side on this topic. There cannot be a side about life separated from the mother, whether or not that life should continue to live.
Senator Tim Scott on the Senate floor today with a passionate message for his colleagues who rejected a bill to protect the life of babies who survive abortion procedures. The bill was championed by Republican Senator Ben Sasse, who brought it to a vote yesterday, but it failed to advance, with every single 2020 Democratic presidential contender voting no. Joining me now is Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst. It's worth mentioning that Senator Scott was delayed by a flight that didn't arrive in time for him to vote, and he wanted to make that statement today to make it clear how he would have voted. Brett, good evening to you. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Martha.
Hi. So, you know, what is politically, what's at stake for these candidates, these Democratic candidates who have sort of staked out this ground on this bill?
Well, I think this ground is pretty far out of the mainstream, Martha. I mean, all the polling that we've seen in recent times about pro-life versus pro-choice suggests that people are, you know, split about 50-50 on the matter. But when you start talking about abortions that are done, you know, late in a pregnancy, the numbers just plummet. There's very little support for that. And now here we are talking about something that goes well beyond that. We're talking about a child born alive as a result of an abortion that fails, and whether that child should receive the medical care necessary to keep it alive. And that is what this bill was about. It would require doctors to give the requisite medical care to keep a born alive infant who survives an abortion going. And that's what the vote was about. And that's a pretty extreme position. And if you've got, you know, these Democratic presidential contenders are climbing out on that limb on that issue, I think it's very risky, particularly when you put it together with all these other, I think it's fair to say, extreme positions that some in that party are now taking on everything from reparations, as you discussed earlier, to all of the elements of the Green New Deal, which are just remarkable how extreme they are.
I just want to put up a tweet from Elizabeth Warren that sort of expresses why she was not willing to vote for this. She said Republican politicians just tried and failed again to score political points at the expense of women. Enough. Women and their doctors should decide what is best for their health, not the Senate GOP. Britt.
Well, first of all, Martha, the most obvious point about that is that we're not talking about the woman's health here. We're talking about the health of an infant who has left the mother's womb and is alive on the earth, and whether that child should be entitled to the medical care that is required to keep it alive. Infants who survive abortion arrive in many cases, and they're in extremis, and they need medical help. And this is not about the mother's health. This is about an infant child's health in America. And for her to say that is strikingly dishonest and misleading. But, you know, this is a movement. The choice movement, the abortion movement is about euphemisms like that. Women's health, reproductive health. This isn't about reproduction. Abortion and this certainly are not about reproduction. They're about non-reproduction. And what we're talking about here, Martha, is this. What the opponents of this measure are trying to protect is not really a woman's health. It's a woman's ability, when an abortion has failed, to achieve the same result by other means. That's what this is about.
Well, you know, it's one of the things that strikes me, Britt, is that with Judge Kavanaugh in place now, it feels like this whole issue, because there's a fear on the part of people who do not want to see Roe v. Wade overturned, that there is sort of, you know, a creep in that direction that's happening in the Supreme Court. And then you see all of these states' efforts to, you know, to pass laws that will make sure that the state has the strongest possible laws allowing it. You know, do you think that ultimately this issue, because it is becoming so front and center once again in our society, that it becomes something that the Supreme Court has to deal with?
Well, that could happen, certainly, Martha, but I think that in the near term, the question really is how central the issue becomes in the 2020 presidential campaign and the campaigns that go on around the country during that whole election cycle. And, you know, my own thought about what people who are in favor of abortion rights should be doing is that they should be willing to go along with restrictions on abortion that would bring the process to the point where it's, as it's practiced, is approved by a majority of the public. By and large, it's been close, but this has kind of been a pro-choice country for a while. That may be changing, and not in a way that the pro-abortion rights folks want. And so I think that there's a very good chance if these extreme practices, such as the one described by Ralph Northam that gave rise to this bill, are in the imagination of the American public when they go to vote and this issue is front and center, I don't think that helps the choice movement at all. I think it harms it and harms the candidates who are so far out on this issue.
We will see. I just want to put up this one poll that we showed. This is a Marist poll that shows the movement towards pro-life, 38% in January, 47% now. And it backs up the point that you're making, Britt, which is that the discussion of this that began with Governor Northam, and at least in this chapter, may be moving the needle on this. Brit Hume, thank you very much, sir. Always good to see you.
You bet, Martha. Thank you.
So that is the story.